Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have this opportunity to share how we can help support mental health in the classroom. And my name is Debbie Chamberlain. I am one of the presenters today. I am a retired teacher. I taught for 19 years, absolutely loved it. And one of my highlights was getting to start a mindfulness program in my school. And I just saw the drastic impact that it made on our entire community, which was wonderful. And I'm certified in mindfulness and also yoga. Super thrilled to be here. And Madison, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today and taking time out of your evening to spend an hour with us learning about mindfulness in the classroom. My name is Madison Quiros. I'm an instructor and the programming and development manager here at Mindfulness First. My background is in education. I was a 3rd grade and 4th grade elementary education teacher. I have a lot of special ed experience, both personally and professionally with my son. And then when the pandemic started, I left the classroom to support my kiddos at home and started working for an ed tech company supporting kiddos and families through the MTSS and special education process, and just super passionate about the work that we do. And I understand the joys, the challenges, and the struggles from all the perspectives, being a parent and educator and in the administration space. So I'm really happy to be here and hope that we can share some great practical strategies for you. And I'll pass it back to Debbie.
Thank you so much, Madison. So we are Mindfulness First. We are a nonprofit that helps support classrooms and educators and communities. So we're super, super thrilled to be here. But before we start getting into what we are, we're going to talk about something that's so passionate for us, and that is incorporating mindful moments into our practice. So if you have ever done a mindful moment, it is a chance to take a powerful pause so that we can help regulate our system and increase our focus and be able to be in the present moment. Doesn't that sound amazing? So let's do that now. Let's do that together. So I invite you to get into a comfortable position, whatever that is for you. You can have your eyes closed, or if you would like, you can take a look at the screen. And let's get anchored in our breath with perhaps your hand over your heart and another hand on your belly. And taking a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale. Breathing in. Breathing out. Biggest breath of the day, filling your lungs. Inhale. Feeling your belly rise, perhaps a hold, and then with an audible sigh. And as you just stay anchored in your breath, I invite you to take a look at the screen, the sunshine, the field, and start to just think about how you feel inside. If you had to describe your feeling as weather, what would that be? Is it a sunny day? Perhaps a few clouds? Is it a rainy day? Does it feel like a monsoon is coming? Is it a blizzard or a quiet snowy day? So perhaps with your eyes closed, just grounding yourself in your body, breathing in, just visualizing how you feel as a form of weather. And then with your next breath, just moving your body in a way that feels nurturing to you. So perhaps if you need to roll your shoulder, if you're feeling tension there, or moving your neck, or stretching up high, whatever's feeling good in your body. Then another deep breath in. Exhale. Bringing yourself back to this space. I invite you, if you would like to in the chat box, if that's part of, if you have access to that, to type in what type of weather you felt. I know for me, I'm having kind of a sunny with a few clouds. How do you feel? Blizzard? So if you want to type it in the chat box, please feel free as an invitation. We'll take a look at the chat box in a moment. So what we're gonna do today, we said mostly clear blue sky with a few clouds that are drifting. Okay, I like that. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so in our table of contents, we'll be talking about mindfulness first. We're going to be talking about our why. We will have a whole session on trauma and regulating stress. We'll learn how to have practical mindfulness practices and then also next steps. Okay, so about us, what we do and why we do it. All right, so we teach educators and children practical skills that support lifelong mental health and well-being. And I know you're not in front of me, but I'd love to ask this question. How many of us learned how to have these skills to regulate our emotions when we were younger? And probably if I was seeing all of you, you would not have your hand up. And that is something that Mindfulness First is very passionate about, to be able to bring these practices to children because it gives them tools that will last their whole life, which is so powerful. And as an educator for 19 years, I understood the importance of incorporating these practices for myself so that I can be a regulated nervous system for the students in my classroom. So it was absolutely powerful for my classroom, but then that ripple effect of trickling into our school environment. So that's what we're hoping to bring to you today. Okay, I love this slide. We all have stress that happens throughout our day. We probably could all name several things that happen to us. We all have little traumas and big traumas that have happened in our life. And without our mindfulness practice, we often can get into that reaction mode. I know we've all been there and we've all done that. With mindfulness, we can still have those stressful experiences. We add that powerful pause, the mindfulness, and instead of having that reaction, we have a response. We're able to think more clearly with our prefrontal cortex. We'll talk more about that later, and calm the amygdala so that we can have those skillful responses. It is absolutely so powerful. And that slide comes back again. So after we've had some practices, we'll talk about how that can be impacted in our daily life. So Mindfulness First instructors, I'm honored to be one. We provide in-class modeling for teachers to learn the skills and tools they can use in their classroom from day one. And this is what's amazing. If you are somebody who is around children, then you can use that first practice that we did with the weather and talking to the kids in your life about how they're feeling as a form of weather, and understanding that just like the weather changes, our emotion changes too. So it's not always going, if I feel like I'm a hurricane, I'm not always going to feel like a hurricane. And if I'm feeling sad, I'm not always going to be feeling sad. So that's from day one, you've already learned a tool that you can put in your mindfulness toolbox. Okay, so your mindfulness practice, 16 weekly lessons. They're about an hour a week. You're going to be learning trauma responsive, brain-based. That's the part I love most about Mindfulness First. It is based on neuroscience and research. And practices, again, for yourself, because we can't give from that empty cup, and your students. They're age appropriate. So we will have all of those lessons will be according to age. So if we have what is mindfulness is the first one, we have it all the way from preschool through high school, which is fabulous. And then we have online and in person. So online teacher training and student modeling. So instructors will go in the classroom and they'll teach, the teacher will be able to be a participant and they'll get to observe and watch us teach the lessons to the kids. It's super, super powerful. We also have a lot of professional development, which is so instrumental in helping us with our practice. We're just going to fast forward a little bit. So let's take a breath. You get a little recap. Awesome. Okay, so our castle. So these are all the skills that we use to help create that best conditions for our kids and ourselves. So self-management. How am I managing myself? Because that is in my circle of control. My relationship skills. So how am I communicating with others? There's nothing better than being able to use mindful communication. Self-awareness. So just like we were becoming aware of how we were feeling inside our body and our mind when we were doing our mindful moment, that comes with self-awareness. Our social awareness. So understanding the environment and the people around us and how we can enter situations with curiosity and care. And then responsible decision-making. That's when that prefrontal cortex goes in action and we can make those skillful responses. Okay, so mindful teachers create mindful classrooms and mindful schools. Oh, I love this because as a mindful teacher, and I've seen this in action, we were so grateful to have ASU help support us in gathering research. We were in the Balt School District, and some of the big takeaways from this was they noted that there was an expanded teacher self-care. Teachers started to recognize that they needed to prioritize their well-being. And as a teacher for years and years and years, give is what we want to do because we love what we do and we want to give everything. And what teachers are starting to understand is the importance of their own self-care and what that looks like. And at Mindfulness First, we help teachers to cultivate that. Also, improved relationships with coworkers and their school community. It was so impactful that they were able to understand the power of the pause and the way to incorporate mindful communication when they were having difficult conversations. So powerful. Positive interactions with the students. It was amazing because they understood what was happening with the students in their bodies as far as cortisol being released, their amygdala being activated. They understood that so they could help the student to regulate before they tried to enter with a teachable moment. So, so important and powerful. And lastly, we also talked about practicing mindfulness as that ripple effect. When we talked about that before, when I am practicing, and I am spreading that, then it just keeps the seeds planted and it just gets watered and it grows. So we also were supported at NAU where we noticed 95% of an increase with teachers being able to have non-reactive measures. Decrease 94% of teachers feeling burnout, so a decrease of that, and just an overall improvement of emotion regulation and student relationships, which is so important when we talk about mindful students and what that is bringing to our school communities. And so for our kids, we know best gift we can give to others is our regulated nervous system. So starting to see a better self and purpose, more empathy for their peers because they're modeling what we're doing. There was a higher graduation rate and test scores, that cognitive function, that prefrontal cortex was firing. It was amazing. And then fewer depression and anxiety symptoms, that less isolation, decreased disruptions and fewer detentions. And then when we do all of that, the students, the staff, all working together. It just creates that mindful school community, which again, is just magical. Okay, it's time. It's time for my favorite grounding exercise and another thing you can put in that toolbox. So again, getting in a space that feels comfortable. So sitting up with your spine in a line, your chin is in. I like to tell kids it's like a water hose. If I crinkle the hose, then the water stops. So same thing, we want to be nice and tall so that oxygen can flow through our nervous system. So let's take a deep breath in through our nose and exhale. Again, just feel the sensations in your body. Breathing out. And I invite you to open your eyes and just look around the room, wherever it is you are, and just start to notice the things that you see. So you can start to name whatever it is you're seeing. So for example, I see a black computer. I see some black eyeglasses, a purple vase. So just naming the things that you see around you. You might have to stretch your neck a little bit to look up and down. And then taking a deep breath in, a deep breath out. Noticing things that you can touch. So I like to just trace my hand, the lines in my hand, and feel the sensation of what I can touch. Perhaps your hair, your clothes. I have a pen nearby that's nice and smooth. So just anchoring yourself in the things that you can touch. And then with a deep breath in, getting so quiet that you can notice the things that you hear. Perhaps the humming of a fan, or sounds that might feel far, like cars moving. Maybe you're so quiet that you can hear your breath. Take a deep breath in, a deep breath out. And then noticing the things that you can smell. Breathing in, perhaps dinner's cooking. Maybe you just imagine something that you love the smell of. And then lastly, something that you can taste. Again, it can be something that you maybe already have. You have a mint or gum in your mouth and you can taste it, or something that you love to taste. Imagine that now. Breathing in. Big exhale. I invite you when you're ready to just open your eyes. Welcome yourself back into the space. Thank you for joining me in that mindful moment.
Thank you, Debbie, so much for that. I feel nice and calm and relaxed now. I appreciate that. We are going to shift gears now, and we are going to talk a little bit about our why and what is driving us to do the work that we do. And before we do that, we want to take a look at some agreements that we have as we begin to talk about stress and trauma. I want to invite you to make sure that you do whatever you need to be able to take care of yourself as we start to talk about some of the topics and statistics that inspire us to do the work that we do. If you need to mute yourself, take a break, take a sip of water, please feel free to do that. The agreements on here being present with your attention, but also with noticing in your body how you're feeling and if you're needing to take a break. If you need to ask for help, you're welcome to access down at the bottom. There is a Q&A or a chat that you can message just the panelist. That would be Debbie and myself. So we're happy to help you out and respond throughout the whole webinar, or you're welcome to message us after or do some Q&A at the end. We welcome any questions or feedback or comments that you may have. Please I invite you to be curious instead of judgmental. Sometimes when we are learning new topics, it can be difficult to practice that growth mindset that we're always trying to teach our kiddos to have in the classroom, because we can have a very structured way of thinking of things. So maybe encouraging yourself to have an open mind to explore new topics, but also, again, being mindful of yourself and what you need. We are going to move on to what drives our work. And what drives our work is probably really similar to what is driving you to be here and be a part of this webinar right now. We see headlines like this across the country and across our state. It's not a problem at an individual or a family level. This is something that's at a national level. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Children's Hospital Association declared a national state of emergency in child and adolescent mental health in 2021. And we're seeing the impacts in our schools, in our homes, in our communities, in the daily work that we do with kiddos. And again, it's across our country and in our state as well. What's driving us to continue sharing this is, first of all, the knowledge that behavior is a form of communication, and helping individuals, whether it's students, teachers, parents, community members, to understand the science behind their brains and bodies, the connection between their brains and bodies, what happens when we have high levels of stress or excitement or high emotions without having a pause to regulate our nervous system. And so we really love that we're able to share not only the science behind why we do the things that we do sometimes, but also the strategies to regulate for self-regulation and also for co-regulation. Because when we start to understand ourselves, we start to have some empathy for ourselves. And then when we can have empathy for ourselves, it helps us to have empathy for others. And in addition to that, we really try to focus our outreach and any type of learning that we provide, whether it's in the classroom, to businesses, to families, to communities. We ground it with these 3 teaching touchstones. We teach about trauma. We teach about how what happens to us, it can be stored in our body if it's not processed, and how we are able to bring awareness through mindfulness. Mindfulness is noticing what happens inside of our body, our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, but also noticing what's happening outside of our body in the present moment. And when we start to bring awareness, then we can start to have a pause, as Debbie was talking about. We also really focus our grounding pillar in social emotional health. You can kind of think of it as a bicycle with our IQ and our EQ. We focus a lot on our IQ, but our EQ is also equally as important. We need to be able to have a language to express how we're feeling. Sensations are the language of our body that tells us how we're feeling. And if we're not able to accurately express the sensations or the way that we're feeling, it may impact the way that we're receiving the support that we need. And so we really try to ground our teaching in all of those areas. And of course, when we teach this from an early age, we're building those skills to have resiliency, to bounce forward, to have self-regulation, to advocate for ourselves. And when we do that, it ends up saving us in the long run. So we are going to do a quick foundational lesson. So this is something that we teach to our educators, we teach to our kiddos. It's the basis of trauma-informed, mindful-based social emotional learning. And it is one of my most passionate topics to talk about because I love talking about the brain. I love talking about how our brain and body interact. So the purpose of teaching mindful-based social emotional learning in schools and in our programming is to help increase inner resilience and self-awareness and self-regulation in students and also in staff, while also creating kinder, healthier, safer, more productive schools and communities. And the way that we do that is by teaching the science behind our brain, our nervous system, the connection between our brain and body, and then practicing the tools that are necessary for self-regulation. And then also noting that sometimes, even as adults, we need co-regulation in order to be able to calm our activated nervous system. So being able to recognize in ourselves when that might be necessary. So we are going to talk a little bit about brain science. You get to become a little bit a neuroscientist right now. So go ahead and put on your little lab coats. And we teach neuroscience from kindergarten. So just as Debbie mentioned at the very beginning, we have differentiated curriculum from kindergarten all the way through high school. And so in kindergarten, and even honestly, when I go teach in the 8th grade classroom, I still bring my puppets. We teach with puppets and we teach with different characters to teach us about the different parts of the brain. And so we have the prefrontal cortex, or the wise owl, that is in charge of our making smart choices, critical thinking, problem solving. That's where our learning happens. And our wise owl, our prefrontal cortex, works with our hippocampus right here, or our library. We call it the elephant in the classroom because elephants have very great memory. So the hippocampus, or the library, stores the information that you're learning. So as you're learning new information in the classroom, your prefrontal cortex is taking that information in, and your hippocampus is storing that information. We have another part of our brain right here, a little tiny part of our brain, but this tiny part of our brain has a really big job. And this tiny part of our brain is called the amygdala. And we call the amygdala the guard dog, or the security guard in the classroom, because the amygdala is in charge of curiosity and also in charge of keeping us safe. So we actually function from our amygdala until we're about 5 years old. So that's why we have our toddlers and kindergartners running around just kind of crazy because they're curious, they're exploring the world, they're learning, they are exploring, everything is new to them, and they are excited. When our guard dog starts to bark, when we're getting very excited, or when we're starting to have those big emotions, our guard dog will start to bark, and it will actually cause us to, if our emotions are getting too high, too big, to flip our lid. And when we flip our lid, we lose access to this part of our brain that's in charge of making smart choices and thinking critically. We also lose this access to this part of the brain, which is in charge of storing memories. So when we're having really, really big emotions, like, I don't know, not having enough sleep, and then running a bunch of errands, and then forgetting to do one of your items on your to-do list. And then you sit down to do your work and your brain just freezes. That might be because your amygdala is barking, your guard dog is barking, telling you that you are a little bit overwhelmed. You might need to calm your guard dog. You might need to settle your nervous system so that you can regain access to your prefrontal cortex and to your amygdala, so you can remember the smart choices or the healthy choices to help you get out of that activated state. And the amygdala has that big job of keeping us safe. And in our brain, there are more neurons firing out of our amygdala telling us to respond than there are coming back telling us that we're safe. So as we're detecting the world, we have a superpower called neuroception, and we are continuously just scanning our environment. And this happens below our awareness, so we're not even aware of it. We're scanning our environment, taking in cues of safety and cues of danger to decide if that environment is safe for us or not. And as we're doing that, our amygdala is either firing up, telling us that we need to protect ourselves, or it's staying settled and we are continuing to have access to our prefrontal cortex. So as we move on to talk a little bit about trauma, when we talk about trauma, this can be a capital T trauma, this can be one event or experience, or it can be a series of experiences and events that metabolize into an experience that creates a response in our body. There are ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, but then there's also repeated exposure to toxic stress. Even being at heightened levels of excitement for long periods of time without having a break can cause our body to have that same response as it would if we were experiencing a trauma. And so when we experience things like divorce, death, COVID, illness, bullying, disability, neglect, emotional abandonment, we rely on the strategies that we have learned and the community supports that we have around us. And we are looking for a feeling of safety. It's not necessarily being told that we're safe. It's a feeling inside of our body that we're safe. And because of individuals' experiences to traumatic events and their experience and their historical trauma and their family history, we don't know anything about a person, even if they give us their ACEs score, without their story. And that's something that's very important to understand, is that we can experience trauma differently, and we can't assume to understand how a person is metabolizing that. So when we are talking about trauma, we want to understand that it is how we react to unresolved and unprocessed happenings, causing huge emotions that result in adaptations in behavior until the trauma is processed. And there is a new area of science called neuroscience, epigenetics, ACEs, and resiliency that is studying the impacts of historical trauma, how that impacts the expression of our genes, and how we can have a hypervigilant expression of our genes from having historical trauma or being exposed to toxic stress for long periods of time. And again, the resiliency piece and how we can respond to those experiences, those individuals, and teach the healing strategies. So some of the ways that trauma can show up in the classroom, again, behavior is a form of communication, and sometimes kiddos ask for love in the hardest ways. Humans are hardwired for connection, and oftentimes when we're struggling on the inside, we are projecting that as anger. Anger is a surface emotion at the top, and underneath is something that we're not wanting to expose of ourselves. It could be fear, it could be embarrassment, it could be hurt, any of those things that we're just really struggling with. And so in the classroom, when we have kiddos that are struggling with behaviors, either in a fight or a flight response, helping them to understand that you are a good person who is having a hard time is so important. Giving them opportunities to be a leader, making sure that you are providing a space that allows for connection first, because we can't learn if we don't feel safe. We aren't able to access the part of our brains and our bodies that are open to connection and to exploration when we don't have that felt level of safety. And so in the classrooms, as the teachers and as the school support staff and administrators, making sure that we are being aware of what we need to do to regulate our bodies so we can provide that safe nest and community for our kiddos to feel safe as well. So that kind of leads into these protective factors, breaking the cycle of trauma. Whenever we talk about trauma, we always want to talk about resiliency, because we have neuroplasticity. Our brain has the ability to reshape and restructure and grow based on the experiences and the learning opportunities that we have, and even as adults. And so as we start to build these emotional competencies, we start to develop language to express how we're feeling and emotional regulation. My dog is jumping up here to give me hugs and kisses right now. That is helping us to be able to develop self-awareness, self-regulation, and even help with co-regulation when we are coming across peers or loved ones that are experiencing activated nervous systems. Connection is the number one piece for these protective factors. Dr. Bruce Perry even says that our social connections are a better predictor of our future outcomes than our ACEs scores. And that just goes to show you how important that is. One caring adult can make such a huge difference in the life of a child. There was recently a panel with Ivy League school administrators and business executives, and they across the board said that the number one reason that people came to their school or their organization was having that one caring adult in their life, regardless of their background. And so I think that for me and for all of us in this space, we really are passionate about providing support, providing care, providing that safe environment for our kids. But make sure that you are providing that for yourself as well, because again, we can't give from that empty bucket. And we need to make sure that we are able to continue showing up. All right, so I'm going to pass it back to Debbie for mindfulness in practice.
Okay, so thank you so much, Madison, for all of that information. Let's just take a breath together just to ground. That was so much knowledge that we were able to get from her. So let's just take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Just allow your bodies to settle. Breathing in and breathing out. Fabulous. And as we start to think about, when we have these stressors or traumatic events that are happening to us, it is building that mindfulness toolbox that we had talked about before. So here we're going to be talking about mindfulness in practice, what that looks like. It helps us to manage and regulate those thoughts, our emotions, the physical and mental impulses, those reactions that we were talking about, and really tuning into our senses, into our five senses, like we had done earlier. Okay, here is this slide again. So now we have a little bit more knowledge about stressors, about trauma, and how that impacts us, how that impacts the other people that in our lives. and how we understand what's happening in our bodies and in our minds when we have these stressors and traumatic events. We can often, again, like we talked about, have those big reactions. So for example, perhaps you came home today and you thought the dishwasher was going to be unloaded because that maybe was your kiddo's job, and then it wasn't. And you start, but then like Madison said earlier, you might have had, you know, maybe you ran out of gas, or maybe you were late to a meeting and you had all of these other stressors happening to you. So you're kind of already in a little bit of fight or flight, and then you come home and then that's happening. And then perhaps you might want to have an emotional reaction. Now, what is so powerful is with practice, and that's why I love that it's called a mindfulness practice, because it is something that I know and I'm sure Madison can probably agree, this is something that I practice every single day. The joy is in the journey. I'm never going to get to the destination, and that's okay. This is something that we practice. I can't just go to the gym one time and think I'm good to go. It's something that I have to practice every day. So, but with consistent practice, it becomes easier because of neuroplasticity. So because we're rewiring our brain to be able to access these tools. So this is where I can add that powerful pause, that active noticing. So noticing what's happening, and I love this part because it's inside our bodies. Like, is my heart racing? You know, like before this presentation, Madison and I were talking about, you know, our heart was racing a little bit because we were so excited. So just noticing what's happening in your body, being curious and losing that judgment piece. The self, and then also what's happening outside your body. So understanding the inside and the outside. That self-regulation, so using breath work. Now we know what's happening in our body when we have a stressor. We're releasing cortisol, our amygdala is becoming activated, our sympathetic nervous system is activated as well. And when we access breath work, especially when we have a longer exhale, so perhaps inhaling for 2, but then exhaling for 4, the magic happens. You're going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Your vagus nerve is going to be like on point, and it's going to start to regulate you to where you can say, okay, let me get curious. Let me get curious. Perhaps maybe your child had a lot of homework and they couldn't do it. Or maybe, so you can go into it with more curiosity and care rather than the big reaction. So having a skillful response, where you're regulated, where you can think critically, where you can use your mindful communication skills to help communicate what you needed in that moment. And you can, of course, engage in decision-making. I love the whole, if I could just go back one more, Madison, with the, I love the one caring adult though. That's awesome. So that think before you speak. So asking yourself, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? So think before you have that response. And then this quote is something that I just absolutely love. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So when you really think about that, like when we have that pause, that space that happens, now I'm able to communicate effectively with my child to help them learn and grow. I feel regulated. It helps them to feel regulated instead of, that can happen when we have the reactions, because there are mirror neurons, and especially with our children, they are going to mirror our nervous system. So if I'm reactive, they could be reactive too. So the best thing I can do is regulate myself so that I can really get the outcome I want, which is the dishwasher unloaded. So, all right, thank you, Ms. Madison. Okay, so trauma and tension are held in our bodies. So we naturally will contract, and often you'll see people, and I know I do this too, where I'll contract like this. But very rarely do you see people like open, because it feels vulnerable. And we're not often like that. So when we incorporate mindful movement through stretching, it helps to discharge that energy and gets us out of fight, flight, or freeze, which, oh yeah, feels just good in your body. So let's just take a moment to move. If you want to kind of come forward on your chair, if you can, and we're just going to ground our feet on the ground if you can. Fortunately, I have to scoop myself up so I can actually reach the ground. So again, sitting up nice and tall, taking a deep breath in, but as we breathe in, reaching your arms up super high, you can even look up just slightly. And then as we exhale, bringing your arms down so you look like a cactus. Exhale. So breathe in, reaching up high. Oh, breathe out. You can even do a slight arch if you want to in your back, if that feels good. Honor what you need for your body. Wonderful. And then placing both hands down on your chair, reaching your arm up over and just arching, feeling your side body, breathing in. And then as you exhale, like a rainbow, just bringing your arms around and then coming to the other side. And let's do that in a flow. So breathing in, come around. And then coming to the other side, breathe in. And big exhale. And then coming back to a neutral and a seated cat-cow. So arching your back, looking up, coming into a cow. And if you want to, you can moo. And then coming chin to chest. If you're with little kids, you can have them meow. And then just inhale, coming into cow. Exhale, coming into cat. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. And then rotating your shoulders up, back, and down, and let all that stress just slide down your back like a waterfall. Just letting it go. And just notice how you're feeling. Sometimes I like to gauge in a number. So 10 being my stress level high, 1 being I'm feeling great. And if I just kind of notice that I'm at like a, 7 or an 8, then maybe I need to move my body in some way to give it the nourishment it needs. A great book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk he has a quote that he says, cultivating sensory awareness is such a critical aspect of trauma recovery. So understanding that we store these emotions in our body is so important so that we can help to release them. Okay, I'm so excited to talk about Crockett Elementary School. We have been in Crockett Elementary School for, I believe, 5, 6, 7 years. It's been a long time that since the program has started there. And I actually had the honor of working with their principal and some teachers in their sustainability. So it was very powerful to hear them talk about how this has impacted their school over the year. They're America's 5th most economically segregated district. They're the home school to the UMOM, a family homeless shelter. It's a large Somali refugee population, and there are 17 different languages spoken among the student population. Okay, so, oh yes, since 2015, it said on there. So, and they're doing Mindful Mirror, one of the instructors at Crockett. So this is them in action, a 4th grade teacher. And here's some of the things that they do. They have mindful morning announcements. And again, because I was in that, I heard some of the things that the teachers are doing and the principal does. They take opportunities to have mindful walks. They teach mindful eating, which we actually teach when we go into the classrooms as well. They have mindful moment breaks in the cafeteria and also in class. So mindful moments similar to what we did at the beginning. They have supportive training and curriculum for teachers, and they do have leadership support and check-ins during staff meetings. So and when we would lead our meetings in our sustainability, we would start with the mindful moment, and they do that in every single staff meeting so that they're all grounded, ready to receive the information. So their outcomes, so exciting. As suspensions decreased from 45 to 3 within 3 years. They went from a C to a B, and there's a strong restorative culture on campus. So also A+ School of Excellence by AEF in 2020, which is incredible. They were also recognized in the Greater Good magazine. So you can take a look at that. There is a QR code, and I know you're getting emailed this presentation, so please take a look at that. It's a wonderful, wonderful read. And here is an example of us teaching in the classroom. And let's see if we're able to hear it okay. I don't think that we can hear it, and it's going kind of slow, but I can describe it because that's actually me teaching. So imagine I'm in a second grade classroom, and we are talking about, we have heartfulness lessons where we are talking about the importance of, yes, being kind to others, but also being kind to yourselves. And the kiddos are saying positive affirmations. So they stand up and they have a superhero pose. So they could choose whatever helps them to feel a sense of empowerment. So they stand up, and then we repeat, I am brave. And then they'll say, I am brave. I am kind. I am kind. And then we say the most important, I am me. And then they all celebrate the beautiful people that they are. So it's such a fun lesson that we teach in the class. And again, we have 16 of them. They're amazing. Okay, our next steps. So your mindfulness practice and leading your classroom. All right. Okay, so we have Intro to Mindfulness. It's a foundational online training. So you'll begin your personal practice and gain tools for your personal growth. And you do have 6 professional development hours that are offered for that. And then we have Teaching Mindfulness 1. So this is actually training for educators. You have to get lifetime access, which is amazing because I still go back and look at some of the lessons. They have people modeling the lessons. So if you want to know, oh, how do I teach mindful eating? You can go and there's a video that shows you somebody teaching mindful eating, which is great. And you get K through 12 curriculum, and you get 10 professional development hours for that. And then Teaching Mindfulness 2. Wow. That's an incredible course of a deep dive into your own personal practice and how you can incorporate SMART goals and different deeper mindfulness practices for yourself that you can also, again, share with others.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And we are going to go through a couple more of those courses in depth in the next couple of slides. And then we have QR codes also for you to be able to access information as well. How long do you think? Maybe 20 or so seconds. We'll keep each QR code up so that it gives everybody a chance to take a picture or to pull it up if you would like.
That's a great idea.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. So our online course, you have 6 weeks, 1 hour per week. You have the professional developments like we talked about. It's great for adults, and you also have lifetime access to that. And then our Teaching Mindfulness 1, you have 17 weeks, 1 hour per week. You have the professional development, your personal well-being, but as a teacher, I'm going to just be excited about this, done for you curriculum, which is incredible. And resources for students and parents, which I'm going to accent that parent part. It's so great that we incorporate the entire school community. And then, of course, lifetime access for that as well. And in-person classroom modeling. So you get to watch, like we'll come in, we teach the kids the lessons, 30 minutes per week. We have 16 different lessons that we teach. And whatever, if we're teaching about what is mindfulness, you're learning about what is mindfulness in your course. So it directly mirrors what it is you're learning. All of the curriculum is identical, but it is age appropriate. And yeah, it's a great program. And then the online course, this is the Mindfulness 2. This is 8 weeks, a real deep dive, like we talked about. And you also get mentorship, which is incredible. You get to plan for healthy classrooms in schools and districts. You do get professional development. And of course, as always, lifetime access. Oh, glitter jars. Glitter jars are the best. So we use glitter jars when we are in the classroom. We also have a lot of different breathing techniques. Maybe I can do a couple, and then Madison, do you want to do a couple? So
Sure.
Heart and belly breath, we've done that where we breathe in, then we breathe out, just feeling our chest and our belly rise. Birthday candles, you can pretend you have a birthday cake and you breathe in and then blow out the candle. Roller coaster breathing, super fun. You can have your hand out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, going all the way through. And then we talked about counting breaths. You can breathe in, counting for 5. Breathe out, counting for 5. All right, Miss Madison, do you want to take the...
Sure. Yeah. So pinwheel breath, or you can use like wildflower or daisy breath. You can imagine that you're breathing in through your nose. And then as you breathe out, that you're blowing a pinwheel, or you're blowing the leaves off of a little flower. So breathing in through the nose and then breathing out through the mouth. We also have bumblebee breath, which the kiddos love bumblebee breath. It helps to give some of the humming to the nervous system. So it's stimulating your nervous system to help you kind of regulate a bit. So we breathe in through the nose, and then as we're breathing out, we buzz like a bee. And sometimes the kiddos will flap around and walk around mindfully around the classroom. And then when I say flower, they'll stop and do a heart and belly breath. Or if they don't want to move, we'll just stay in the seat and breathe in just like this. And then the glitter jar breathing. These glitter jars are so great to make in the classroom. There are a couple, if you're a local teacher in Arizona, there's a couple of nonprofits that are great for getting classroom supplies to make these. There's Treasures for Teachers or the Art Resource Center, where you can get supplies for low cost or free. And there's also videos that you can pull up of glitter jars kind of settling, where you can talk about big feelings moving around in our bodies and helping them to settle. And then breathing buddies and helping kiddos in the class pair them up. There's different breathing patterns where you can go back to back, and you can take in a big deep breath and notice what it feels like leaning up against your partner, breathing in and breathing out. You can also do mirror activities where the first partner gets to do a breath and the other partner mirrors what they're doing. So lots of different options. And one strategy that I would give for working with kiddos, we don't like, even as adults, when we're having a hard time and we may be dysregulated, if somebody tells us to calm down, it kind of makes us a little bit more dysregulated. So kiddos kind of respond the same way, right? They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard. And so when we're noticing them starting to get a bit dysregulated, instead of saying, hey, calm down, we could say, I'm noticing that I'm having some big feelings in my body. So I'm going to do the birthday candle breath. I would love if you did the birthday, or I would invite you to do it with me if you'd like, and you can start modeling it and invite them to join in with you. And then we've made it to the QR code. So I'm going to pause here for just a few seconds on each slide in case you want to scan it live. And then again, you will have the presentation sent to you. This QR code is for our toolbox of freebies. There is mindfulness for burnout and some additional strategies and resources for you to download. So there is this one right here. All right. The next one is for our Mindfulness First Scholarship. So we are currently proud and so excited to be funded by the Arizona Department of Education to help mitigate some of the post-pandemic stress in the classroom. And part of that funding allows us to be able to provide K-12 educators with some scholarships to take our online courses. So we have that information right here for you and the application to fill out. Alrighty, and then this last one is a QR code of this presentation right here. So if you scan it, it will copy and save, but again, it will be emailed to you, I think, in the follow-up email after the close of this webinar. And there's not a slide for the upcoming training, but there will be another training in this series. It is Introduction to ACEs and Resiliency, and it is next Wednesday at 5 p.m. as well. The information is also on our website to sign up for that. And with that, we thank you so much for being here with us today. If you are in a profession that services kiddos and you are interested in any of our services or trainings, please feel free to reach out to Xenia. She is one of our co-programming directors, and she will send as much information as you need. And we will stay on for a few minutes for whoever would like to, if you want to chat, ask any questions, or connect. Other than that, we will give your time back to you. Thank you so much for sharing this time and space with us today. We really appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.